With Jacqueline D'Agostino, I'm Chris Hassel. It is the first day of August. We have football this month.
Yep.
It is also the last day to make a trade in Major League Baseball.
It is. Happy trade deadline day to all those who celebrate. Someone who definitely celebrates is Jim Bowden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard him talking to Brandon this morning. He said it's the equivalent for the front offices in baseball to like a birthday, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever celebration, it is basically that.
And he's been in there making those trades on this very day, too.
Exactly. So 6 p.m. today, that is the deadline. You see all the teams there that have been in the headlines for trades, potential trades, and what have you. So as 6 p.m. inches closer and closer, we're going to be turning on all of our alerts, paying close attention, because we've already seen some big names and some trades go down. Max Scherzer, Joe Kelly, you see some of the guys in there. The guy in the middle, Justin Verlander, he is the next big question mark that we're wondering about. Initially, he said, hey, I'm going to leave it up to fate. I don't really know where I'm going to go, but we're hearing the Astros are now the front runners for a potential trade with Justin Verlander. So we'll have to see what happens there. Also, what about the Yankees? What should they do as the trade deadline looms? Again, that is at 6 p.m. Eastern. And we have the perfect pair to discuss all of these trades and potential trades. We have our front office expert, Jim Bowden, former World Series champ Will Middlebrooks with us. And guys, we have trades coming down ahead of the 6 p.m. deadline. We want to talk about the Mariners. Will, you're actually in Seattle right now for the Red Sox series. They're making moves. They trade Paul Sewald to the D-backs, trading A.J. Pollock. Will, what do you make of these moves? And why would Seattle sell at this point, in your opinion?
I have no idea, Jacqueline. They just went 17-9 in July. They were tied with Baltimore for the best record in MLB. They're selling? I feel like the clubhouse might not be very happy with this one. Like you said, I'm in Seattle right now. This team can pitch. They have 4 legit starting pitchers in Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert, the young kid Bryce Miller, who throws today against Brian Bayo. That's if he's still a part of the club by 7 o'clock tonight. We'll have to see. All these guys that came out of the pen yesterday throw flames as well, and I don't really understand the direction of this front office at this current moment, especially since they are playing the best ball they've played all year. They're only 5 games out of the division. I don't think they win the West. The Rangers and the Astros are really good ball clubs, obviously, but they're only 3.5 games out of a wild card, and you saw what happened last year here in September with that wild card race and them getting into the playoffs. So a little confused by this one.
Yeah, well, look, I agree with you. The Mariners right now are going to buy and sell, is what I was told. I talked to Jerry Dipoto on Sunday, and he told me one of the things that he was really concerned about was a lack of contact in his lineup, and that they just didn't have enough traffic, and there were too many strikeouts in their lineup. They just weren't able to get guys in from third base with less than 2 out. So he wanted to try to improve that. But I'm in the same boat that you are. They've got the rotation. They had the bullpen. They just needed to add some bats. Now, they controlled Sewald not just this year, but next year as well. He was their closer, and I love the fact they had Muñoz to set him up. Now Muñoz will have to close, and they won't be as strong in the setup spot. But I didn't love the return either, Will, and that's the big problem I had with the trade. When I look at Dominic Canzone and Josh Rojas and minor league infielder Ryan Bliss, which was their return, yes, all 3 of those guys make contact. I get it. But all 3 are just role players at the big league level. They're just extra guys. Canzone to me is a 4th outfielder. Josh Rojas is a 5th infielder. And so it just didn't make sense. I mean, I think what they did is they traded quality for quantity here. And then they turned around and dumped A.J. Pollock and Mark Mathias on the San Francisco Giants because they needed roster spots for Canzone and Rojas. So I didn't understand it. I didn't like it either, but they're not done. I'm told they're going to probably move outfielder Teoscar Hernandez by the trade deadline. Teoscar's a guy that low on base, not a very good defender, but he does have 25 home run power. They're expecting, again, to move him by 6 o'clock. But they're buying, they're selling, they're in between. But I'm like you, 3.5 games out with that rotation, I'd be only buying if I were them.
And one of the teams linked to Teoscar is the Phillies. Right now, they do have a wild card spot. They've been relatively quiet ahead of the trade deadline. Jim, are you expecting any last-minute moves from them?
Yeah, I mean, look, Dave Dombrowski's the president. He's got a long history of making big deals. And, you know, they were so excited to have Harper play first so that Schwarber could go from left field to DH. They really wanted to get a left fielder. They've been engaged with the St. Louis Cardinals trying to acquire Dylan Carlson, who would play left field if they could pick them up. They haven't been able to make that trade yet. They've also talked to the Cardinals about Alec Burleson, a left-hand hitting outfielder. The other thing they were looking for was trying to land another starting pitcher. We have a bunch of starting pitchers that are going to be traded in the next 5 hours. The Tigers have 2 of them, in Eduardo Rodriguez as well as Mike Lorenzen. Obviously, the big name is Justin Verlander. We'll get to that in a minute. But Jack Flaherty of the Cardinals is going to be moved. Maybe the Cardinals and Phillies can hook up on a deal where Flaherty and Carlson can go to the Phillies for a prospect package. But I do expect at the buzzer Dave Dombrowski to do something. I just don't remember him ever being silent or quiet like he is right now.
Yeah, and I feel like the Phillies are a playoff team. I mean, obviously they're in right now. I think their core of players right now is really good. Now, they lost Rhys Hoskins in spring training to a torn ACL, so that left the void at first base. They've tried several options there. A lot of their main guys, as you see right here, have underperformed. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Bill Musico. These guys haven't played well up until this point. You have to think it's going to even out, right? You look at the back of their baseball cards, and you feel like it's going to even out. They're going to get hot over the next couple months. Now, with that said, they have been linked to Seattle. Ty France, Teoscar Hernandez, 2 positions they'd like to upgrade. Maybe first base not being as high on the priority list now that Harper has shown he can play there and be serviceable. Not great defensively, but, knock in more than you let in type thing. But Ty France would for sure be an upgrade defensively and would allow Harper to really focus on just his offensive side of the baseball where he needs to pick it up.
And Jim, you already kind of mentioned the big name that's out there ahead of the trade deadline, Justin Verlander. The tune around his future has certainly changed over the last 24 hours. At first, it seemed like he wasn't going anywhere. Now it seems like the Astros are the front runners for a potential deal. What more can you tell us about a potential trade for Verlander at this point?
Yeah, so the Astros have been engaged with the Mets, and there was a lot of momentum as early as this morning on a possible deal between these two teams. And then it all kind of stopped for a period of time, and other teams have been engaged. So the Baltimore Orioles have constantly been engaged with the Mets. They've thrown some ideas at the Mets and vice versa. I understand the San Diego Padres today, and we shouldn't be surprised since A.J. Preller is such a wheeler dealer for the Padres. They jumped in today with the idea of maybe they could trade, let's just say, for an example, a Blake Snell. They trade him to the Orioles for prospects. They take the prospects and trade him for Verlander. So basically it would be Snell for Verlander. Then you ask, why would that help San Diego? Well, because you would control Verlander for 2 more years, where they're not going to be able to extend Snell because Snell wants a 5 or 6 year deal. So it would make sense for San Diego, and if the Mets were able to get the prospects they want, fine. But the other element that none of us know the answer to, Justin Verlander has a full no-trade clause. He can absolutely dictate where he goes. When he signed with New York, he picked New York over the Dodgers, and geography had something to do with it. His wife, Kate Upton, and a young child live in New York. They love it in New York as well. So he's got to prove it. Now, I know he was happy in Houston, and I'm pretty sure he would waive the no-trade clause to go back there. I don't know if he would waive it to go to the Dodgers, the Orioles, or the Padres, but my understanding, all 3 have at least been staying in touch with the Mets during this process.
Yeah, and I think obviously the Dodgers and Astros are favorites here. Obviously, what they have to give up, chances to win. Obviously, a couple plays he would waive that no trade clause to. I do think the dark horse here is the Baltimore Orioles. I think they need an ace. I think the one thing they lack is that one aspect of the roster is needing an ace, right? They lack that, and that is what's holding them back from being in that same category as the Atlanta Braves, as legit World Series contenders. I'm just not sure how willing they are to make that type of financial commitment that would be needed to have Verlander on their team. They just haven't spent money like that. Roughly $15 million remaining this season, $43.3 next season, vesting option of $35 million in 2025 if he surpasses 140 innings, which they hope he would next season. But he seems locked in and pitching at a really high level again. And someone, like I said, that would make take any team really to a new level. The Mets, I just want to say this too. I feel like the Mets should just keep him. Like, they still have next year and beyond to worry about. Will $43 million be an overpay for a pitcher in his 40s? Yeah, but I don't know how many other arms on the open market are going to be better than him this winter.
All right, we'll have to see what happens with Justin Verlander, his future with the Mets. Let's talk about the other team in New York, the Yankees. They're like 2 different teams with and without Judge. They get Judge back in the lineup. They're still at the bottom of the AL East, but Will, what do you think they need to do at the deadline to potentially make a postseason push?
Well, okay, I'll just start by saying this. We all have that one friend who keeps dating the same type of girl over and over and over again, but is always optimistic that this is definitely the time it's going to work out, and she's the one. And all of us as friends know it never ends that way. And that's kind of what Brian Cashman's doing in New York right now. He continues to build a one-dimensional, poorly constructed offense that's reliant on the dominance of one player, and that one player being Aaron Judge. And we've seen his history of injury. We've seen them go through stretches without him, and they continue to struggle, and they dig themselves into this hole that's tough to overcome. And now, with all that negativity said, they're a hot streak away from being in a wild card spot. They're just 3.5 games out. That's not a lot. They can do that. This doesn't feel like a playoff team to me at all. At all. Right now, I think it might be time to start questioning, is Aaron Boone the guy for this job anymore? I hate doing that. I hate start talking about managers and this and that because players are the one that need to perform. But I feel like there's got to be a sense of urgency there. And there was a quote from Aaron Boone after Sunday Night Baseball right here that really bothered me, right? They struck out 18 times, and he's talking about them grinding out at bats. Where's the sense of urgency? That starts from the top. It starts with your management. It starts with your manager, and then onto your players. Stuff like that can't happen.
Yeah, so I view it differently than Will does. I don't think this is the fault of the manager at all. I think it's the fault of not building a good offensive team. I think they concentrated too much on defense, giving young players a chance, and having too many older players in the middle of the lineup. I mean, look, the reason this team isn't winning is because Anthony Rizzo's not hitting, Giancarlo Stanton's not hitting, DJ LeMahieu's not hitting, Josh Donaldson didn't hit. So last night, what happened to Aaron Judge? They walked him 3 times. If I'm facing the Yankees, I'm walking Aaron Judge 4 times every single night. I'm not going to pitch to him because you have no one around him that's hitting. What do the Yankees need at the deadline? They needed a third baseman and a left fielder. They needed offense. They had a chance to get Jeimer Candelario of the Nationals. They had no interest. Didn't even make a phone call. Ends up getting traded to the Cubs. This is a guy that led the American League in doubles 2 years ago. They have a chance to trade for Lane Thomas of the Nationals or Dylan Carlson of the Yankees. I know they didn't have interest in Thomas. I think they do have interest in Carlson. Maybe at the deadline they can pick up Carlson and Flaherty if they're not traded to the Phillies, perhaps. But I think they need offense here. I think that's what Brian Cashman needs to focus on. They need to get someone to protect Judge in the middle of the lineup. You get some hitters on that team, you'll see the Yankees in the postseason.
Hey, just to clarify, I'm not blaming Aaron Boone. I am blaming Brian Cashman in the construction of that team. I just thought that quote was funny, and I wanted to see it.
Yeah, 18 strikeouts is rough anyway you slice it. Will, Jim, we know you are busy guys with the trade deadline coming up quickly. We appreciate it. Good stuff as always. That trade deadline, 6 p.m. Eastern today. Some notable games for your Tuesday. We got Game 2 between the Phillies and the Marlins. Marlins favored in that one. Battle of the MVP frontrunners with Shohei and Acuna, the Angels and the Braves, and then a battle in the NL Central with the Reds and the Cubbies at 8:05 Eastern.